The magnificent Durham Cathedral was originally built as the shrine of St Cuthbert of Lindisfarne. Earlier, I met Marie-Thérèse Main to find out more about this great saint of the north.
He's many things. He was a monk, he was an abbot, a bishop and a saint. He's the reason that Durham Cathedral is here. He was born in the early 7th century and grew up fairly normally. And then when he was in his teens, he had an extraordinary vision, an epiphany you might say. One night he was looking after sheep in the Lammermuir Hills and he suddenly saw a vision of angels guiding a soul wondrously bright to heaven. And he took this as a sign from God.
The young Cuthbert then found out that St Aidan, Bishop of Lindisfarne, had died that very night.
He was inspired to devote his life to God, to become a monk. A few years later, he too would become Bishop of Lindisfarne. He was ascribed miracles of healing, of prophecy, and when he died, he was very quickly announced a saint. That was reinforced 11 years after his death. He'd been taken back to Lindisfarne and buried outside the church there. 11 years later, the monks decided to elevate his body, to recover the bones and place them in a reliquary so they could be seen by pilgrims. And they had quite a surprise in store. When they opened the coffin, they expected to find bones, but what did they have? A complete body, looking as if it was just asleep. He was incorrupt, he hadn't decayed, and this was a sign of great, great sainthood. So he became a focus for pilgrimage. People visited him, again, miracles ascribed to his intervention. And he stayed on Lindisfarne for about 170 years until the Viking raids forced the monks to flee. They gathered up all of their treasures, they gathered up the relics, they gathered up their saint, and they eventually settled here in 995 AD. And the very first Durham Cathedral, the Anglo-Saxon cathedral, was built in honour of St Cuthbert to house his shrine and to the glory of God.
But what's the function of the cathedral today?
It's very much as it always has been. Our primary aim is to be here for the worship and the glory of God. But we also are serving the community, we're serving our congregation, we're serving our visitors. We are a living, breathing church, a working church, and we're part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site as well.
And all along, Cuthbert, who had that epiphany all those years ago, has been watching it all.
And he's still watching over us today.
The Lumiere Festival takes over the whole of the city of Durham, but the centrepiece is always the cathedral.
People will come to Lumiere for all sorts of different reasons, but one of the things that we do hope is that as they come through the cathedral in their thousands, we hope that they will pick up something of the light of Christ. They may have a moment of stillness, they may want to come back another time, they may just receive a warm welcome, and as the bell welcomes them, we hope that they'll hear something of Christ in that.
Rachel, you've been helping out with people lighting candles. What is it that draws people to lighting candles?
I think people find that it's a really nice, easy way of being able to remember someone. So lighting a candle, that physical action, seeing the candle light up, and just being able to pause and reflect. I think people feel drawn to do that.
Epiphany is about light and discovery and revelation, and that's something that's happened in your life as well, isn't it?
Yeah, about 5 years ago when I was in Afghanistan, serving out there, I had a moment where I went from really being a complete non-believer, an atheist really, to walking into a shipping container where a service was being held. And in that shipping container, that's where my whole life changed really. The army chaplain sent out a message to say, come to the service, whether you're of any faith or none. And I felt that I was included in that. I felt that I had a legitimate reason to be able to go because I was invited. And I had had a very difficult day. I did feel quite burdened, and it was an opportunity to go in and to pause and to reflect on my day, and I took it.
What happened? What was happening in your heart?
I wish I could remember the exact words the Padre said, the exact Bible passage, but I can't. All I know is that in that 20 minutes that I was in there, I went from not believing to understanding that God is real, that God has always loved me, and that God was calling me home. So it was a really incredible and quite overwhelming experience. And luckily that the Padre saw that I seemed like I had something on my mind, and he took me to one side and we sat on some sandbags, and he said, is everything okay? And I said, I'm really worried that I might be becoming a Christian. And he said, well, don't panic. He gave me a copy of the New Testament and Psalms, a little camouflaged Bible. And I spent the next 9 months discovering who Jesus was.
You walked into the shipping container an atheist,
Yep.
and you walked out a Christian.
Yeah, basically.
A shipping container?
A shipping container, yeah.
Rachel.
Not the most glamorous of places to meet God, but it happens in the strangest places. Obviously the Magi were in the desert too, and so it's exciting that they were following a light, and they desperately wanted to go and meet the Christ child, and it felt a bit like that for me. I'd learned in the shipping container that God was real, and then I wanted to go and find out who this Jesus character was.